Howdy! This is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, and I wish you a very, very, very happy National Jukebox Days. Today's show is presented exclusively by College Basketball Analytics. Hey, it's getting close to Thanksgiving, getting close to Christmas. Maybe treat yourself. Go to cbbanalytics.com, sign up for a free account. It's free, so that's automatically treating yourself if you haven't done it already. And of course, you can sign up for a paid account using the code SCHOTT. That's SCHOTT, SCHOTT, and you can get an entire month free. So, Ohio State is about to enter the biggest stretch of its non-conference schedule, and quite possibly the most important stretch of its season. Today, we are going to cover Ohio State's game against Pitt coming up on Friday. Of course, I've already explained this show coming out today simply because I'm not going to post something on Thanksgiving. I'm going to assume you're going to be busy. Hopefully you are. And I'm not going to post something on Friday because the game's at 2-ish. And if it's going to be played at 2:30, then that's not really a lot of time for you to get to listen and get prepped for the game. So that said, this show coming out on Wednesday, we're focused on that game. But according to KenPom, Ohio State has 3 top 15 teams to play non-conference coming up here. It's going to be Pitt, who's number 15 in KenPom. They've also got Kentucky, who has risen all the way up to 12 in KenPom. And they've got Auburn, who is the number 1 team in the nation, according to KenPom. So this is going to be a brutal stretch. And oh, by the way, Ohio State still has to play Rutgers and Maryland in conference play coming up next week. They'll start Big Ten play before going back to non-conference play. And also, shout out to Valpo. They're sprinkled in there as well. So maybe a pushover, maybe not. Who am I to say? I'll say at some point. The time is not now. Ohio State with a big game against Pitt, though, coming up. That is first and foremost what we'll talk about here today. If you're here, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, 2 questions for you. Yet number 1, what's your score prediction for this game? I truly do want to hear it. I'm interested. Number 2, what's your favorite side or dish when it comes to Thanksgiving? Let's talk Thanksgiving. Me personally, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. So we got the day before Thanksgiving. I'm hyped. It's a great day. Me personally, again, the weather for Thanksgiving, I would prefer it look like this. Cloudy, cool, cold even. Maybe a little sprinkle, maybe a little wintry mix. I'm good with that. It makes me feel right. And then, of course, Ohio State fans have the game to look forward to on Saturday where the weather may be absolutely awful then too. So we're excited for that. But if you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Let me know what score do you predict the game to be? What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? And if you're listening on podcast, you can just DM me that too if you're into that. But if you're on podcast, please do make sure you're subscribed. And as well, make sure you give a 5-star review to the show. You can follow the Views from the Schott podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And by the way, Ohio State, as of this morning, is the number 16 team in the nation, according to KenPom. A little bit further down in the T rank from Bart Torvik, but still the Buckeyes getting a lot of love. Analytically, at least at this point. Another team getting a lot of love analytically is Pitt. So let's talk about the Pitt Panthers. Unranked right now, but my guess would be the winner of this game most likely is going to be ranked by the end of the week heading into next week. So Pitt sitting at 6-1 right now. Again, They're playing good basketball. This was a team coming into the season that I said, hey, look, this could be a tighter game than people realize. This could be a bigger game than people realize. Pitt is a good team. Jeff Capel's done a good job there at Pitt. I think entering season 3 or 4 or something like that at Pitt. So he's got a strong team. Again, they're ranked 15th in KenPom. That's 1 spot above Ohio State. And then they're ranked 24th in Bart Torvik, which is 1 spot below Ohio State. So analytically, these teams kind of seen pretty much neck and neck at this point. Pitt sits at 6-1. They crushed West Virginia. They most recently took on LSU and Wisconsin as well, which is a cool No one cares about that. Moving on, they took down LSU. They blew a pretty sizable lead. I think they were up like 21-9 at one point against Wisconsin early on. And then John Tanji, he took over in the second half for Wisconsin and basically willed the Badgers to victory over Pitt. It was a close game, but Pitt just couldn't hold on. They ended up losing that one to Wisconsin. So sitting at 6-1 right now, we're going to go down. We're going to break down the offense. We'll break down the defense. I've got keys to the game. That's returning because this is actually like a real game. It's hard to have keys to the game when you play Evansville. Like, have a pulse and run up and down the floor, and you should be okay. Not the case against Pitt. Pitt is a good basketball team. So we'll talk offense. We'll talk defense. We'll get into keys to the game. Banger bets. We don't have any lines available right now for Ohio State against Pitt, but at some point we will. I will give you my projected number, and then maybe we'll have a banger bet. We'll see. I'm going to guess probably not in this one. I don't really have a good feel for this, but maybe our betting intelligence platform will. And then, of course, predictions and picks at the end of the show. So, overall, we talked about Pitt. They're 6-1. They've played 3 Power 6 teams right to this point in the year, and they're going to continue to play those good programs, taking on Ohio State here in the Schott on Friday. Offensively, they're averaging 84.3 points per game, so that's obviously very good. 122.6 offensive rating is great, and they still got 117.1 adjusted offensive efficiency, which is really, really good as well. So this Pitt offense has a lot of strengths. One of the first ones you look to is just their sheer shooting numbers. Right now, they're one of the more efficient teams from the field in all of the NCAA. They don't really play with all that high of a pace, but even without playing with that high pace, they're still scoring lots because they're so efficient. They're 50.2% from the field this season. That's 26 overall in the NCAA, and they're 10th overall in two-point shooting at 61.8%. Their three-point shooting is fine. They don't take a lot of three-pointers, and I think they're somewhere around 33, 34%. I might have that later on in the show. But where they're really good is inside the three-point line and specifically at the rim and in the paint. At the rim, they're 77.4% on the year. That is just insanely good for a team to shoot that high cumulatively at the rim. And they're 53.8% in the paint this year. That's really good as well. So a lot of the scoring when it comes to paint scoring is going to come from Cameron Corrin. He is 12 of 16, or sorry, he scored 12 to 16 points in every game this season. He's averaging, I think, 13 points per game, which we will touch on that later on. But he has been a primary paint scorer for Pitt this season. And then Ishmael Leggett is 22 of 23 at the rim this season. That should not be humanly possible. Leggett shooting that well at the rim, obviously that's going to be something that Ohio State is going to have to guard for. It's a really good pick and roll team. That is led by Jalen Lowe. And not only are they a good pick and roll team, but they're a smart offense as well. We'll talk about that here in a second. They also take care of the basketball. They really don't turn it over. 12.5% turnover rate. That's really, really solid, and they average less than 10 turnovers per game to contribute to that. Jalen Lowe is the only player who averages more than 1.7 turnovers per game. I think that's due in part to the fact that he handles the ball so much, but also due in part to the fact that sometimes he can get, I don't know if careless is the word, but he just tries to do a little bit too much with the basketball in his hands. So Jalen Lowe struggles a little bit with turnovers. Outside of that, you really don't worry about it when it comes to Pitt. And I think he averages maybe 2.3 turnovers per game. So it's not a huge amount. And then this is a diverse offense as well. So you've got Jalen Lowe. This is a potential NBA draft pick coming up this summer, I guess is when the draft is, spring/summer, depending on how you determine when spring ends and summer starts. But Jalen Lowe, potential NBA player, he's averaging 15 points per game this season for the Pitt Panthers. He's a primary ball handler for Pitt. But Ishmael Leggett is actually averaging more points per game than Lowe. He's at 18 points per game. And then Cameron Corrin, player we've already touched on, he's averaging 13 points per game. He roams the paint. He's one of those clear pick and roller types of roles on the team for Pitt. So offensively, very efficient, very good when it comes to the pick and roll. They're smart. They don't turn the ball over. Just a good offense overall. Now, weaknesses, they don't have a lot of three-point scoring production. You've got Leggett, who's shooting 34.6% from behind the three-point line this year. That's not bad at all. And then it's Damian Dunn, who averages only 22 minutes per game, which I guess it's not nothing. It's more than a Colin White type of player, but he's not starting and he's coming off the bench. So he comes off the bench, but he's shooting 52.6% from the three-point line this year, which is absolutely insane. He went 4 of 7 in one game this year. He's also gone 3 of 5 in another game this year from behind the three-point line. So this is a player that you watch out. You got to know where he is on the floor when he is in, because he is willing and able to shoot three-pointers. Outside of that, though, no one on this team shoots the three ball noticeably well. They're not bad shooting the three, but they're not great, and they also don't fire away like teams like Green Bay or teams Ohio State has seen. So not aggressive from behind the three-point line. They're fine. They're not great, but they're not awful either. Another, maybe not an area of emphasis that Pitt has, or just a weakness, is their second chance scoring. So 8.3 second chance points per game this season. That's 21st percentile in college basketball, but only 9.8% of their scoring this year has come off of second chance opportunities, and that is 8th percentile in college basketball. So what does that mean? Well, the offensive rebounding production is just not there. Their offensive rebounding rate is only 29.3% this year. That means Sean Stewart, Evan Mahaffey, Devin Royal, those should be players who are feasting in the paint. They are feasting when it comes to defensive rebounding. They're already solid at it. Pitt is not good at it. If you're giving up extra possessions in this one and allowing Pitt to score second chance points, that's going to set Ohio State back. That's a spot where you would expect Ohio State to win that matchup. If they don't, it means Pitt's going to have a much higher likelihood of winning this game. Let's talk defensively for Pitt as well. So they score a lot of points. They're efficient. The analytics love Pitt's offense. Their defense are only allowing 63.1 points per game this season. They've got a 91.8 defensive rating, and their adjusted defensive efficiency number really, really good as well at 95.0. So this is a solid team altogether. These are the teams that you look at come March, and you see, oh, they're a top team offensively, they're a top team defensively. Maybe they could make a run when it comes to the NCAA tournament. We'll see if that's who they will be come March. It's a long ways away, but at this point, you got to respect Pitt's offense and their defense. They did just allow 81 points to Wisconsin, but against LSU and West Virginia this season, they gave up 63 and 62 points respectively. So they've shown the ability. West Virginia, how good are they? Not very, probably. LSU, who did they beat this year? LSU beat a good team. I think Kansas State really early in the year. The SEC is so good. LSU might be like the 11th best team in the SEC. It doesn't matter. They're still a really good team. And you only allow 63 points to LSU. That's a good thing. So this defense is solid, and they've played well against Power 5 teams this year. Now, strengths, they defend the field well. Not only are they really efficient offensively from the field, but they're good defending shots defensively as well, only allowing 37.6% of shots from the field to go in. Inside the three-point line, they're at 44%, and outside the three-point line, 26.5%. All of those numbers are 88th percentile or better in college basketball this season. So if you're going up against Pitt, even if you're Ohio State shooting the ball really well, this is going to be strength on strength. Who's going to win? And when you go up against a team like Pitt defensively that has been this good, you maybe shouldn't expect to go 10 of 22 from the three-point line like Ohio State, I think, has gone that exact number at some point this year. So they defend the field well. They also make a lot of splash plays. They've got a 6.9% steal rate, a 7.7% block rate. That leads to a 14.6 Hakeem rate. That is 92nd percentile in college basketball this season. I think when you talk about those splash plays, when you talk about the Hakeem rate, that's really big in home games because it gets the fans fired up. But regardless, you'll take it. It's very, very helpful. And when it comes to turnovers as well, they force 12.6 turnovers per game. So they take care of the ball. They add extra possessions. All in all, this is a solid Pitt offense and defense. The only weakness that you'll see, I don't really have stats on this. This is just from watching a couple of their games this year, knowing that Ohio State was going to play Pitt. Wanted to make sure I kept an eye on them. They just look a little flat-footed at times. I don't really know how else to say it. Again, no numbers to back this up, but they allowed, even against Wisconsin, they allowed a few is an understatement. They allowed several open looks on Sunday off of just quick cuts, backdoor cuts, rejecting screens, whatever the case may be, to where Pitt showed it was vulnerable. It just falling asleep at the wheel, something like that, to where they weren't all the way there when it comes to covering their own man and kind of falling asleep. And rotationally, they weren't all the way there either. You can't fall asleep when Evan Mahaffey is on the floor if you're Pitt. That is Evan Mahaffey's kind of bread and butter, is to cut at the opportune times to find open space on the floor, grab the ball, and quickly go up for a layup or a dunk. So when he's on the floor, that could be an area of opportunity for Ohio State. It's led to a lot of paint points as well. They're just 21st percentile defensively in percentage of points scored in the paint this season. So that's an area of opportunity for Ohio State for sure. You definitely look at Evan Mahaffey in that regard. You look at Devin Royal, I think, in that regard. Maybe a Bruce Thornton. Michi Johnson, just so good off the drive specifically. Maybe he can score in the paint as well, but we'll see when it comes to that. So that's the Pitt offense and the Pitt defense. Very solid all around. We're going to get into keys to the game, which is going to include kind of some more anecdotal evidence of how this game could go. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you about college basketball analytics. So you can go to cbbanalytics.com. You can sign up for a free account. You can poke around a little bit. I use CBB Analytics for literally every single show that I create during the season. You can see player profiles, quickly see on one screen, where is a player scoring, where is a player not scoring, where is a player shooting from and not shooting from. You can see shooting zones, you can see on-off splits, you can see rotational splits. What's the best rotation for Ohio State? What's the best rotation for Pitt? And so on and so forth. Obviously, you can see the sheer counting numbers as well. But college basketball analytics is the best place to be when it comes to finding the best stats in college basketball. And yeah, you can use it for sports betting as well. So would encourage you to go there. College basketball analytics at cbbanalytics.com. Use the code SCHOTT to get an entire month free. That's SCHOTT, SCHOTT, to get an entire month of CBB analytics for free. All right. So let's get into keys to the game. I've got 4 keys to the game in this one. I think that there's some things that Pitt does really well that Ohio State needs to make sure they're aware of and defending against, or offending against potentially. And there's also some things that Pitt does not do well that I think Ohio State will have room to score or defend well in this one. So number one, I think for Ohio State, is defending the rim. We already talked about the number. 77.4% at the rim this year is Pitt. Ishmael Leggett obviously leading the way there at the rim, but there are too many players who can score at the rim for Pitt, and Ohio State is going to have to defend the cup. So Pitt will reject screens. They will elect to cut straight to the hoop instead of taking that screen. We've seen Zach Austin be really, really smart there. That's a player I don't think I mentioned so far for Pitt. But you have to defend the painted area if you're Ohio State in this one. These guards love the pick and roll. The pick and roll is very, very effective for Pitt. The lobs are there a lot of times. The little pocket passes are there as well. So that's something that we're going to have to see Ohio State do. If Pitt is 75% at the rim again in this one, it's going to be tough for Ohio State to win. So it's going to be Evan Mahaffey. It's going to be Sean Stewart. It's going to be Devin Royal. Players like that are going to have to step up. Austin Parks, Ivan Nigman. Without Aaron Bradshaw in there, someone's going to have to step up and make sure that you are defending the rim well. And the guards, too. You're going to have to defend the pick and roll. You're going to have to fight through screens, or maybe if they come out in hard hedge, I don't know what that will look like. But the pick and roll is going to be a big thing, and defending the rim is going to be a big thing as well. And that kind of leads into the second point, which is defending the pick and roll. You've got to shut it down. So Lowe, he is a phenomenal passer. He can hit Corin. He can hit Diaz Graham, which is another player that we haven't really mentioned yet. He's also just very crafty as well with the ball in his hands off the pick and roll. He's a great passer, and he's a really, really just good feeder into the post as well. So you need to keep an eye on Lowe in this one. Leggett, he's great there as well. And this is how they're so good at scoring at the rim and in the paint, is through the pick and roll. They're exceptional in the pick and roll. Ohio State's going to have to shut that down. Diaz Graham, this is an individual matchup that I think Ohio State can exploit. Can you get him away from the rim? So what is his height? Let me pause for just a second here to figure that out, because he's a big dude. He is 7 foot exactly. Guillermo Diaz Graham, number 25 for Pitt. He's a 7-footer. He's also got a twin brother on the team, an identical twin brother on the team, who is listed at 6'11". So how identical are they really? This is a guy who I think Ohio State can take advantage of, especially with the Buckeyes' small ball lineup. This is kind of who you look to attack. So number one, I don't have stats on this. I don't have stats on or anything charted for how is Pitt when you get Diaz Graham away from the rim to how are they when he's in the paint or anything like that. But number one, when you pull him away from the hoop, obviously you take away a rebounding threat. And I need to check to see if he's even leading the team in rebounding. I don't care about per 40-minute numbers. CBB analytics, I would like to see stats per game, please. And defensive rebounds per game, Diaz Graham is leading the team in defensive rebounding per game, probably offensive rebounding per game as well. Actually, he's second. Yeah, he's second. But so the best rebounder on the team when it comes to just sheer numbers, production, and stuff like that. If you get him away from the three-point line or away from the paint and up to the three-point line, it means it's going to be harder for him to rebound, first of all. But more importantly, in games that I've seen this year from Pitt, I've seen a real struggle for Diaz Graham to be able to defend at the three-point line. He's a little slow, not necessarily closing out, but just getting a hand up. You can tell he's hesitant. He's not comfortable being out there. He doesn't think that he has the athleticism to stick with, whether it be a guard or just a good forward who can slash and shoot. You can tell he just does not look comfortable. That's how Wisconsin scored a fair amount of points against Pitt. That's part of how Wisconsin won in that one. But you see he's not that comfortable really closing out, and he's also not comfortable guarding a driving player as well. I just don't think he has the fleet-footedness. I don't think he has the athleticism to be able to stay with players like that. So Evan Mahaffey, as much as I hate seeing him drive, if he drives on Diaz Graham, I'm good with that. Go get a bucket there. But if you can get him away from the paint and out to the three-point line, especially with Ohio State's rotation that they'll run with a lot of small players who can play outside the three-point line, I think that'll bode well for Ohio State. The last key to the game, they've got to move the basketball. Pitt is a team, like I've said, that I've seen just kind of fall asleep at the wheel when it comes to defending and backdoor cuts and quick cuts, anything like that. They're also slow to rotate. So you may have a quick cut where a guy gets open. You kick it out, that three-pointer isn't open, but you kick it to the wing again from the corner or something like that, and that guy's wide open for a three. So that's going to mean that Michi Johnson, Bruce Thornton, Micah Parrish are going to be guys who will have the opportunity to get threes up in this one and make them. We'll just see if Ohio State, if they're sticking too much, which has been a problem over the past couple of years, not so much obviously this year under Jake Diebler, but if you're sticking too much at the ball, if you're just bouncing the air out of the ball and you're not moving around, if you don't have the ball in your hands, Pitt should be okay. The more movement that you add in there, that's where Pitt tends to struggle, I think, defensively. So that's another key to the game. All right. We've got banger bets, and then we've got picks and predictions, and then we're out of here, hopefully, to go enjoy some Thanksgiving pre-gaming. What does that mean? Like you just eat rolls? I don't know. So, banger bets. The spread. We have got an exact number on the spread in this one. I would project this at Ohio State favored by 4 points exactly. I think when the numbers comes out, it should be Ohio State -4 based on our, again, betting intelligence platform, our BIP. That has been on the spread. It's been on the total pretty much every game this season, if not exactly right, a point off, and that is it. So, again, I tell you this number beforehand. I'm sure that there's not a number out for this game. Let me just check to see. I would love to declare a banger bet when we're here, but I doubt that that's going to happen. and I doubt that there's any numbers out right now. Yeah, nothing for Ohio State and Pitt yet. So that said, if you see a number come out and Ohio State's -1.5, you should probably be taking the spread there. If you see a number come out and Ohio State's -7.5, probably be taking Pitt. Just saying. But I would expect this number to be right at -4. That's my projection on the spread. My projection on the total, 147.5. This is going to be an interesting one because Ohio State has been playing faster recently, whereas Pitt has been a pretty middle-of-the-road team pace-wise this season. Even their adjusted tempo, I think that's the number. Is that from KenPom? Or yeah, that's from KenPom. Kind of middle of the pack when it comes to adjusted tempo as well. Actually, I'm looking at Ohio State. I'm not even looking at Pitt, so that's pretty dumb of me. No, I was correct, though. The number I saw for Pitt was the same. Very much middle of the pack when it comes to, or a little bit on the slower end, actually, but pretty much middle of the pack when it comes to their adjusted tempo. So Pitt, not a team that likes to play all that fast. Number of 147.5. I don't have a good lean either way. I assume it'll be in the mid to upper 140s. Will the total be? And at that point, I'm probably not going to have a play. In this one, I don't have anything that I'm leaning toward right now. I don't have anything I love. On our one banger bet this year, we're 0-1. On our lean this year, we're 1-0. So, and the 1-0, at least for me, was at plus money. By the time I communicated it to you, it was minus money, and I apologize for that. But that said, let's get into a pick and a prediction. So, what this comes down to is a few things for Ohio State. Number one, how do you defend the pick and roll, and how do you defend the paint? This is a spot where with Ohio State not having Aaron Bradshaw and still not feeling fully comfortable with foul trouble of Sean Stewart and Mahaffey, Devin Royal, this could be a concern for Ohio State. Can they guard Guillermo Diaz-Graham? I don't know. Is that a huge deal? Is that where Pitt looks a lot? No. So I'm not sure it's necessarily going to matter. But I do think that the pick and roll game for Pitt is probably the biggest key to the game for Ohio State is how they defend that. And I think offensively, there will be room here for them to score. If Ohio State plays its best game where it's moving a lot, it's cutting a lot, there's a lot of good action, a lot of good movement, all of those types of things, then you're going to have a good shot to win this game. So I think offensively, how much are you moving, the assist production, things like that, I think that's going to be important. Defensively, can you shut down the pick and roll? Ohio State, this -4 number, that even feels like a lot. I think Pitt is a good team, but I think it comes down to you've got Bruce Thornton, you've got Michi Johnson, you've got Micah Parrish, you've got, I guess, Colin White, you can throw in there, Devin Royal, Evan Mahaffey. So many players can play different positions and provide different roles on this team. And this Pitt team is not like Texas A&M. It's not built like Texas A&M. That matchup for Ohio State was not really that great for the Buckeyes in terms of team composition. In this one, I like the team composition better, and I like the fact that Ohio State is at home as well. So I'm going to take the Buckeyes to win this game against Pitt, and which should mean Ohio State should be back in the rankings coming up on, I think Monday morning is when that will come out. So I've got the Buckeyes winning this game. I've got them winning 73-68 final score. They would be covering if the spread were 4, like we project. 73-68 final score is my projection. I think the Buckeyes get it done. I think it's a little bit more of a fight for the Buckeyes than maybe you'd like to see, but I think that their shooting ability and I would say just overall their ability to move the ball and to stay active offensively, that's going to bode well for Ohio State and give Pitt some fits. And this one, I think matchup-wise, Ohio State's just faster, they're quicker, and that will help the Buckeyes to victory. So I've got Ohio State winning this one over Pitt, 73-68 final score projected in this one. Okay, so if you made it this far, of course, I asked for a 5-star review wherever you are on podcasts. If you don't feel comfortable, then don't do it. That's fine. I just like to ask it. It would be the nice thing to do, given it is nearly Thanksgiving. Maybe you're listening on Thanksgiving. A lot of Thanksgiving travel. So I don't plan to have a quick show on Pitt like on a Friday, probably not even on a Saturday, just with Thanksgiving festivities that I've got going on. But we will talk about this game at some point, probably maybe in a show where we just kind of talk about that and we talk about Rutgers or Maryland, whichever game is first. I think Maryland, because Rutgers game I will be at on Saturday, so a week from this Saturday. So Ohio State will post Rutgers at home. All that to say, I'm thankful for you being here. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to yours. I hope you have a phenomenal Thanksgiving. I hope you find many, many reasons to be thankful. Of course, Ohio State basketball is one thing. I know holidays can be tough, especially this time of year, so hope that you are doing okay as well, doing all right. Of course, we will be back to cover Ohio State basketball in the coming days. So until then, enjoy your Thanksgiving, enjoy the food, enjoy the family, the friends, and the love. I will shut up before you shut me off.